Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sin and today I wanted to talk about American Psycho. American Psycho is definitely one of my top 10 films. Dare I say, a classic. And my favorite thing about this film, it was directed by a woman. Mary Harron. She directed this film in the 90s. Anyway, let's get right into it. So we open with Bateman and his friends, or work colleagues, whatever you want to call them, out to lunch, and they say some pretty heinous things.
He's handling a Fisher account. Lucky bastard. Lucky Jew bastard.
Jesus, McDermott, what does that have to do with anything?
And this movie is really a commentary on yuppie culture. And then in the following scene, we get Patrick in his apartment all by himself. So we got him in like a social context, and now we see him by himself. And we get more of an understanding of who he is. We get this iconic monologue.
And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
The thing I love about this scene in particular is where he's talking about how he doesn't really feel like he is a person. He is just the shell of a man that walks around with a mask. As he's saying that, peeling back that mask, he's physically also peeling off a skincare mask. Brilliant. Because he is just masking this persona of Patrick Bateman, he does everything just to fit in. Mary is one of those directors that shows you and doesn't tell you, which is the number one rule of directing. And she does a really good job of that. Where he goes to eat, the media he consumes, the people he associates himself with, everything is just to feed into this image of what he's trying to portray himself to be. And we get this scene, him and his fiance out to dinner.
That Timothy, Bryce, and Evelyn are having an affair. Timothy is the only interesting person I know. I'm almost completely indifferent as to whether Evelyn knows I'm having an affair.
And to drive that point further, the person he's having an affair with, they go out to dinner. He doesn't even really want to eat there. He really wants to get into Dorsia, but he's listing off things that they should eat because he read a review about those things, not because he himself is genuinely interested in eating any of those dishes. Mary has made it abundantly clear that Patrick Bateman is not an individual. He is a stereotype. So much to the point where his own work colleagues don't know who he is and mistake him for a different work colleague, Marcus. And then they have this business meeting where they flaunt their business cards, and this is where we get one of the famous Tik Tok audios of them. Just watch.
New card. What do you think?
Whoa. Very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday. Good coloring. That's bone.
And also that scene where he's like frustrated over the fact that his colleagues like Tom Allen's card more than they like his, even though they are all exactly the same cards. That's kind of like the first indication you see that like he is losing it. And then in this other scene, we get more of his monologuing, and he himself admits that he is losing his grip of control.
I think my mask of sanity is about to slip.
And I also want to say this, he keeps making comments about Trump, which at first I was like, what the fuck? But then I remembered Trump was like a socialite before he was president. Like he was like a really famous, rich business guy back in like the 80s and 90s or whatever. Like he was very much a part of pulp culture. He is going to be in the same, he's going to be running around in the same groups as like Donald Trump. So it's actually really on brand that he keeps like mentioning him. Which again, the attention to detail is just chef's kiss. Now that I'm thinking about it, Patrick doesn't ever drink. He always offers drinks to other people, but he himself never consumes any alcohol because he likes to have that control. But he gets Tom Allen drunk and he kills him. And something fascinating that I noticed when I was watching this again for like the 1000th time, he doesn't let up the persona until the very, 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 very end. And the only parts of him that are truly him when he is like committing these awful acts of violence.
Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor. It's also a personal statement about the band itself.
Up until he like swings his axe, he is just basically reciting from memory this review of the track that they're listening to. And that just further drives home Mary's point that this man is not an individual. Love it. But a private investigator, Donald Kimball, goes into his office, which also I want to say, this man never does any work. He's always in his office just listening to music or drawing.
I know how busy you guys can get.
So,
What's the topic of discussion?
And something I really love about this scene in particular, like the lore behind this scene, is that Mary directed William Dafoe to play this scene in 3 different ways. The first one, Kimball thinks that Patrick, he's involved in his disappearance. The second way is that he is on the fence, he doesn't know, he doesn't really know. And the third way is that he doesn't suspect him at all, and it's just like a routine interview. And then in post, she took those 3 different ways of portraying his suspicion, chopped it up, so as the viewer, you never really know what Kimball is thinking, and you're just as confused as Bateman is. And I think that is fucking brilliant. I mean, like, who comes up with something like that? Like, give Mary her flowers. Fuck. Later, Patrick invites ladies of the night to come up to his apartment. My favorite thing about them being in his apartment is the fact that they could care less about him, like, as a person.
Don't you want to know what I do?
No. They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And they don't care. And he tells them anyway, because the thing about yuppies, I understand in like a capitalist society, like heterosexual, cisgendered white males are like at the top of the hierarchy. And so they think they're up there because they're more interesting and better and everything. But we all, as a collective, know, societally speaking, it's because of the way history has panned out, is the politest way I'm going to say that. So Patrick, in his mind, thinks he is this fascinating person that people just are dying to get to know and spend time with and be in his presence, and they couldn't care less. And that is so funny to me because it's true. He is a boring person with nothing to offer. Look at his apartment. All I'm gonna say. They eventually get it on, and I don't know why in my naive brain, because how old was I when I watched this? I was probably a teenager when I first watched this. I thought like, oh, maybe he is just gonna be a little too rough, and that's gonna be the extent of it. After they like do it, he obviously like tortures them, and he doesn't end up killing them. He doesn't kill them, but he does inflict serious bodily harm on them. And with that being said, I did still like the scene of him like flexing in the mirror. That is iconic, and I know he's a terrible person and ends up doing terrible things to those women, but that scene in and of itself, by itself, kind of goes hard. Mary knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing, and it's very on brand for Patrick too. And then we get this scene of them talking about women and personalities.
I know. There are no girls with good personalities.
And I have 2 things to say about this. 1, they themselves do not have a lick of personality. That entire room of men combined, you could not muster up an ounce of individualism. Let's just start there. And 2, there's no difference between that group of men in the 80s saying those vile things and today's men with podcasts. No difference. Imagine that room of men with no concept of like woke culture and sensitivity nowadays. Imagine that room with mics. No, thank you. Fast forward, Kimball is starting to suspect Patrick and does another interview with him. That definitely makes him nervous. And this is the first time we're actually seeing him kind of like be on edge. Oh, I didn't mention this, but he had like murdered a homeless man, and he walked into work the next day like, but the second he kills someone and that they're actually looking for that person, ooh, I should be more careful. Dude, come on. That doesn't stop him, because he goes out and kills this model. And I just want to say that's my biggest fear with like dating. I know that's like everyone's fear, because some men truly are violent and everyone's capable of murder, but that tends to be some women's fate, and it really does sadden me. And that's just the reality of like the world we live in. Yeah, this is a fictional character. He's like OD with it and he's killing everyone and anyone. But there are men out there who kill their partners for any reason, whether it's at the very beginning and like they feel rejected, or even into their long-term committed marriages, they end up killing their partners to like be with a mistress, or just because they lose their jobs or anything. It's just so scary. And it's not exclusive to men, but statistically speaking, in like heterosexual relationships, that tends to be what happens, and that is a genuine fear of mine. And the next day, he invites his secretary to his apartment, and he is going to kill her, but ends up not killing her for some reason. And then Patrick circles back the block and gets Christine to come to Tom Allen's apartment with him and one of his like friends or something. He ends up killing his friend Elizabeth in front of Christine, and Christine runs away, and we get this scene of him chasing her butt naked with a chainsaw, which is a sight to behold, right? And then he drops the chainsaw on her, which is just insane. Just, that whole scene is just crazy. This film is based in New York. Like, the location this is all happening in is New York City. That is so unbelievable. It is so densely populated and everyone is so fucking nosy. If that truly happened in New York, I don't care what high rise it is, if you hear a chainsaw going off and a woman screaming in the dead of night, you are looking out your door. I don't care who you are. It is New York. You're peeping. You're gonna mind your fucking business, but you're gonna yeah, he's outside there naked too, because it's New York. Bateman then goes out to another lunch with Kimball, and he reveals that he was Marcus's alibi. They were all together one night, and so they couldn't have killed Tom Allen. And I want to say this about that. You can see Bateman is visibly nervous.
Not sure. I had a shower.
You know what? He's just losing his mind. He's losing his fucking mind. But he is a little relieved, I guess, in a sense, because he's no longer a suspect in his disappearance. And then we get this scene that's truly, truly, truly out of a movie. I love the sequence. I feel like this particular part of the film is what makes a lot of people think it was directed by a man.
Drop the weapon! Drop it now! Get on the ground!
That's where she gets you. He's at the ATM, and the ATM tells him to feed it a cat. And he sees a stray cat, he feeds it, a woman stops him, he shoots the woman. He goes on this killing spree because he is convinced the police is chasing him. And then he gets into a shootout with the police, and there's this huge explosion. And he looks at the gun, and he looks at the explosion. He's like, this isn't what's going on right now, is it? And he's just like losing his shit. And he runs into his office, and he calls his lawyer. And I don't know if it's what's really happening or if this is what he's hallucinating, that there's like these helicopters behind him, like looking for him. And he confesses everything to his lawyer.
Some homeless people, maybe 5 or 10. An NYU girl I met in Central Park. I left her in a parking lot behind some donut shop. I killed Bethany.
And this is the first time we see him like cry and get emotional. But please do not mistake this for him regretting anything. He is scared he's going to get caught and suffer the consequences of his actions. He doesn't actually feel any remorse for any of the harm he's caused. The following morning, he visits Alan's apartment yet again to clean up after the murders, because I guess he's a type B personality who doesn't just clean up after he makes a mess right away, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he gets into this really weird conversation with the realtor lady who tells him to leave. And so he does leave, and he calls Jean from a payphone, and he is like breaking down, and he's like hysterical, and he can't even communicate to Jean exactly what he wants to tell her. And I want to say this, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to mince my words. In a state of hysteria, Bateman calls Jean and then goes to meet his colleagues for lunch. In this scene, depicting Bateman crumbling under the pressures of being found out, I think is also, in a way, a commentary on yuppie culture and just how unsustainable it truly is. Because think about it, you have these group of young, good-looking men had to keep up these appearances, being intelligent, agile, luxurious, and all of these things. If that's not who you truly are, you crumble under that kind of pressure to be a certain way and be with the right people. That's why everyone in his friend group is engaged to someone but fucking someone else. It's just so unsustainable. You cannot live that way, and you eventually do crumble under that pressure. I know Patrick particularly is crumbling because he's gonna get found out for murder, but I know it's a commentary on how this affects all men kind of live that lifestyle. And so he goes to find his friends, and he sees his lawyer, and he tells his lawyer, he asks him if he received his voicemail, which his lawyer did.
Yeah, naturally.
Bateman killing Allen and the escort girls. That's fabulous. That's rich.
What exactly do you mean?
The message you left.
And tells him that it's impossible for that to have happened because he had lunch with Tom Allen in London last week. Bateman meets up with his friend and realizes like there are not going to be any consequences for his actions. Bateman is unsure if his crimes are real or imaginary, but I could have told you he was kind of struggling with that. And he realizes he will never receive the punishment he desires. And he goes into this monologue about how he's in pain and he wants other people to feel his pain too.
My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing.
And that's where it ends. But give it up again for Mary. She ate that. I love it. I hope you guys love it too. This is definitely not a new movie. It's been out for quite some time. It might even be older than me. I love it. And I do want to say this one thing. And something I noticed this particular time around watching it, Patrick Bateman is dangerous. I hadn't thought about before. Like, yes, he's dangerous because he has violent tendencies. He's also that much more dangerous because of his access to victims. People think that the most dangerous men that we should be on the lookout for are like men that have been ostracized by society. And yes, be wary of those people and those men. But there's a different level of danger with men who are disarming and charming and good looking, like Patrick Bateman. The reason I feel like he's more dangerous is because of his access. Like his pool of access is much greater. What woman wouldn't give him the time of day? You know what I'm saying? And that's just like food for thought. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. If there's anything in the movie that you wanted me to like talk about that I missed. You know, because everyone watches it and they pick up on different things. So I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. So comment that below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I have so much fun putting these together and I really want to keep doing it. So please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.